Awesome. Thank you all for joining. This is the second general meeting um, for the coalition to elect students to the Board of Regents. My name is Spiros. Uh, for those of you who haven't heard of me, I'm a second year doctorate student at the College of Engineering. Um, I'm gonna spend like a minute to for people that are new. I don't see many new people, but either way, um, after last week's vote of the Board of Regents to increase the tuition, to increase the University of Michigan tuition. We've created this coalition of students from many different organizations within the Ann Arbor campus and without the Ann Arbor campus, so from Dearborn and Flint, in order to um, show our disapproval for this vote and also show our disapproval to the fact that the Board of Regents for the past many years has been disregarding the student votes. Um, we have an agenda that I am gonna copy right now on the group chat. Uh, you can all follow the agenda. Um, I'm not gonna take much time from like the actual conversation. It seems to me that there's a lot to be discussed. Um, so I'm gonna give a couple of brief updates on what we've been doing. So as I said, this is our second general meeting. The first general meeting was a week ago. It was a huge success. We had media coverage. We had more than 45 students joining. Um, and it seems to me, and it seems to a lot of us, that there is a lot of student approval on what we are doing. Um, in terms of students helping and also in terms of students supporting the ideas that we promote. As of now, what we've done is, of course, to reach out to students, um, make ourselves known, make our cause known, talk to students, um, interact with students, see what they want, see um, across like all those different organizations, what people think about their voice being heard at the university administration. So there's been a lot of outreach being done. There's also been a lot of outreach in terms of local politicians. A lot of us, especially people that are involved in the CSG, the RSG, the YDSA, the uh, students for Bernie, the Democrats. We have a lot of connections with local politicians, and it seems to me, uh, uh, from the people that I've talked to, the politicians that I've talked to, the people that run for office here in Ann Arbor, um, up in Detroit, Lansing, um, Washtenaw County, that there is a lot of support, especially in progressive politics, for what we've been doing. There's also a lot of stuff going on with us reaching out to the Board of Regents themselves. A couple of um, members of our coalition have been talking to Regents. They have been discussing with them, and they are trying to get them uh, aboard with what we're doing. Um, we the next meeting of the Board of Regents, which is the administrative body of the university that decides upon what's going on at the university, is going to be next week. I've already applied, and I'm going to be speaking on behalf of the coalition during the meeting. It's only going to be a 3-minute intervention. There's not going to be discussion, but this is for now what we've been given, and we are going to take advantage of it. Um, I'm not quite sure if um, all the positions are being filled. I think they allow 3 uh, persons from the public to speak in every each of the meeting. Um, I'm not quite sure if the rest of the positions are filled. If not, I encourage you, if you do want to raise your voice, to go on the Board of Regents um, website and apply for a 3-minute intervention during their meeting. Also, here I want to note the following. We're today we're 16 participants in our group chats. We have more than 40 participants. Last meeting we had more than 45 students. There's a lot of organizations. There's a lot of people that have different opinions. They see politics different. They see campus politics different. And what I want to say is, of course, we are trying to run everything as democratically as possible. We are making every meeting open to everyone. We allow all people to speak. I've responded to every single one of the messages that I've been sent the past couple of weeks that this has been going on. And there is a lot of opinions. There is a lot of contradicting opinions. Um, I'm saying this because there is a lot of, seems to me that sometimes there's a lot of dissatisfaction taken by the majority of the group. What I want to say about that is, of course, we want everything to go through a vote. This means that all the processes and all our actions are going to take a lot of time. If we want everything to go through a vote, if if someone has a disagreement about some action, some idea, something that we represent, he should raise his voice instead of just saying, "Hey, I don't like what you guys are doing. I think it's undemocratic. I'm leaving." We are here to work all together. Uh, I'm saying this. I'm here to like call for unity of like all students. Um, we're trying to take in consideration all opinions, but of course the majority is what is going to prevail. So even if your ideas uh, are not represented and you think they are the majority ideas, what I want to say is that please uh, raise your concern and please bring this up for us to get it on a vote instead of just saying, "Hey, I don't like this. I'm leaving." I'm here to accommodate. We are here to accommodate everyone's needs and everyone's ideas. Last thing that I want to say is that we have like social media. Um, um, that there is some activities going on social media. We're trying to do some outreach. If you go on the agenda under my name on the 6th bullet, you can see a couple of links that you can visit and see more of like what we've done. I'm also right after I'm done talking, I'm gonna post a couple of links. Um, this is all from me. Of course, I'm gonna help Annie to run the meeting and have everyone share their opinions. Uh, I guess there is a chance that we're gonna be voting tonight too about actions. I expect this meeting to last more than the first general meeting because it is a meeting that we actually are trying to solidify our actions and our leadership and the way we're going to be working from now on. Because as of now, it's been pretty much, everyone just inputting their ideas and their comments and concerns without any structure. So today is the day for us to formally vote on a structure, or at least discuss on a structure that most people agree with. So without, you know, any further ado, Annie, do you want to take over?
Hi, yeah, I will.
Thank you.
I'll just update on what the COVID tuition committee has been up to. So first, I want to apologize to everyone who just wasn't aware that this committee had formed. I believe it did form during the first meeting, so I understand why there was confusion around that. And so if you look in the chat, I pasted the link just again in case anyone has joined since Sparrow's put it in there. If you are interested in joining that group, you can click on that link and join it. But so this is something that we've been working on for at least a week now. We would like to do a phone zap. And so what a phone zap is during a designated amount of time, you have a lot of people calling one phone number. And the goal of the phone zap is to create pressure for an action. And so in this case, the action that we would like to see is, if not, nullifying the increase in tuition and decreasing, at least listening to us maybe a little bit more. So that's kind of the general idea of the phone zap. So if you look here, I have a few different links on the agenda. So the first one is the script. You can look on that and click on that and read it in your free time. I feel like it's a pretty fair and moderate call for the Regents. I thought that it was pretty, it wasn't very, I guess, angsty or anything. For lack of, I guess, a better word. And then this I'll go over real quick. So this is the proposed structure of the call. So the way it would set up now is you would RSVP on the link, which is now bit.ly/regentzap. And then this says Thursday, but I'm going to change it to Tuesday. When you get the link, when you sign up to RSVP, you'll eventually get an email with a link. And so you'll join the Zoom call at that time. And then there were 6 regents who voted for the increase in tuition. So we would break up into 6 breakout rooms, and each room would be responsible for targeting one of the regents. And we would call for an hour, and we have 3 designated waves throughout the day. So that means each regent can expect to have a lot of calls from students for 3 hours on Tuesday. So that's kind of just the proposed structure. And this is something that we've decided it might be a good idea to vote on and have a conversation about. So if anyone has any opinion that they'd like to express on the call itself, the idea of having a phone zap, now would be the time. If you want to raise your hand, I'll call on you and we can talk about it. Sam Braden, are you here? Okay, Zach, you can go ahead.
Hey, wait, did you just say something, Annie?
Yeah, I just figured you wanted to say something, so I was going to call on you, just because I know you weren't the biggest advocate of the phone zap, and I wanted to make sure your perspective was heard.
Yeah, I sorry, one second, my subscription. So basically, my one concern is, I'm just wondering about the efficacy of something like this, because it seems to me to be designed to oh my gosh, be designed to cause annoyance rather than actually make a compelling argument. The script is very, very well written. I think the script is a very good thing to read to the Board of Regents. My one question though is the mechanism of just calling a phone number so it's overwhelmed. These phones don't actually go directly to the Board of Regents. They have staff that answers them. So it sounds like it would just be us making a secretary's day miserable, and then they would tell the Board of Regents that we did that. And I think it might make them less willing to work with us. But yeah, those are just my thoughts.
Okay. I can respond to that, but if anyone wants to physically raise their hand, not on the Zoom call, that wants to respond to that, I'll let you go ahead before I do, since I'm just the moderator. Okay, Zach, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I totally understand the points that you made, Sam. However, they are public servants, right? And phone zaps are employed by a lot of different organizations, and they do the same things, but they target representatives, for example. And representatives also have secretaries. But secretaries, what they do is they write down every time there's a point made by a caller, they'll write it down. And the more callers we get mentioning specific talking points, saying we're concerned about our Flint and Dearborn campuses, their increases were way bigger, what's up with that? Then those ideas will be brought to the regents themselves, even if not very many calls get through to the regents. And they will hopefully bring that up at the next board meeting. And another thing I wanted to say is, I think the phone zap was planned so quickly, which obviously caught a lot of people off guard, but that was done because this next meeting is only in 7 days. And we wanted to have something really concrete. We wanted to already start doing work on this. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Sam, do you have a response?
Yeah, just very quick. I'm a big fan of like letter writing campaigns to show interest. But my understanding of this is this wasn't like having all the students calling and voicing an opinion. It's we're gonna take 5 hours, we're gonna take a sort amount of time and just jam their phones. And that seems to me as not actually achieving what you wanted, Zach. I think an effective way would just to have the next 5 days, everyone agrees to call, we like just throughout, so we can show like the group desire.
Mm-hmm. Spiros, you have a response?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle about that. I do hear what Sam says. I don't see how this is gonna harm our cause. That's why I am not against it. At the end of the day, you know, we are gonna make like a small statement, so that's why I'm in favor of it. Also, I like the fact that people put time on actions. This is something that might, be heard around. So I am for it, but we should be careful on how we do it. And yeah, we should really, after the phone's up, and I guess, a couple of regions have reached out to us, but after us doing this, kind of like interaction on their phone lines, we should explain why we did it and what we are trying to promote, instead of just these being like straight up annoying a couple of people in a couple of offices.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle with it. It seems that people like the idea. There is concerns, but yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go David, Josh, Alex, Izzy, if that works with everyone. So David, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm pretty much in the same boat as Spiros as far as my thoughts on this. I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I see the pros, I see the cons. I guess my question, and this is maybe more a question about our group as a whole, since we're still like relatively informal, is like, I know Zach and maybe some other people are really fired up about this. If theoretically we all vote no on this, is this something you would still move forward with? If not, it's maybe not worth voting on, but okay. You're all shaking your head no, so maybe that's not, maybe the question's mute, or I have my answer, I guess. But if anyone wants to speak to that in response.
I think Zach and I are at least in agreement that we wouldn't move forward with that. Josh, I didn't see you shake your head. Maybe you would still plan something. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is important. I understand your concerns, but there is a very pressing need to address the fact that people are really afraid about what the semester is going to look like. They're very unhappy with what's going on. I know you can say, oh, we need to try to work with them. Clearly, they're not on our side. They didn't even like freeze tuition. They increased it when Zach talked to them. It didn't sound like they were very interested in even having an ex officio member. So what we're really doing is proving that we have the energy behind us to actually demand change. And I don't think there's any other way that we get it with at least without at least showing that we can get students together to cause some sort of disruption, make ourselves known, and continue working on other things. But this is, I think, really necessary. Just telling people to call over the course of a week, there's not going to be enough energy behind. I also think this definitely has to do with also energizing the student body. Like, having people sign petitions is all well and good, but creating a space where people feel like they're actually like pushing for change, and like these meetings are nice, but they're just discussing. Like, if we give people the opportunity to feel like they're making a change, I think we're more likely to actually get people involved and supporting what we're working on. That's just my thoughts.
Okay. Alex, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Well, hi, I'm new here, so I don't really have any experience in CSG, but what I do have is, a voice, I guess, and because of that, especially recently, in contact with some professors at the university and other administration, my voice hasn't been heard. And, I'm someone that thinks about the people at large and the community at large. So that's the voice I want to bring today. I'm a business student, so automatically I get that stereotype on me, which is fair for the most part. But I guess I'm here really to offer that outside perspective that maybe people want to hear. Maybe some don't want to hear, but I'll try to keep it on agenda. But, the way I see it is we need to make our voice heard. I think this is an amazing way to do it. I really sorry, I'm blanking on the last gentleman who just spoke.
Joshua.
Josh. I really agreed with Josh in that, we need to be passionate. Otherwise, change isn't going to happen. And I think the script, I just read it for the first time, to be quite honest, so I haven't pondered on it much. It looks great, but I think what we also need is more actionable steps. And, for people like me, I think a lot about stuff like cutting costs. I'm on campus right now. I walk by Ross. I walk by LSA buildings, the ugly. All of the lights are on right now. All of them. The bus systems are still running. You know who's riding the bus? Maybe 2 athletes who already own mopeds. There's a lot of stuff going on at the university, a lot of operations that are still operating. And it doesn't make sense that why would we have to pay next year for things that shouldn't be operating right now? And, I don't know what the best way is, but that's my piece on the matter.
Thank you. Izzy, do you want to go ahead and speak, and then we'll get to Renee?
I'm Izzy. I'm currently representing LGBT Michigan, and I'm here with my acting teacher, Nicholas Zuzula. He's just sort of listening in. He's not on the call right now, but he's just sitting next to me. So I really like the idea of the Phones Act because I think that one of the biggest challenges, especially our organization, is we're really very community focused. And we're very, very, because of that, we're very, very focused on getting together and doing things together. And that's obviously difficult in terms of COVID-19 because that's one of the biggest risk factors. And I think that a Phones app is a really great way to sort of cause somewhat of a nuisance, a disruption in order to get your voice heard, in order to get attention, but in a way that is accessible and safe to people right now. In a time where we can't just walk up to we can't walk up to Dean Schlissel's office and be like, what's going on? And I also agree with a lot of what Alex says. I feel like the university, this is just coming from more of a personal place as a student. I feel like I pay a lot of money in tuition, and when I heard about this tuition increase, I was very upset, and I was also concerned because I know that there's a certain demographic that is associated, a certain socioeconomic demographic that's associated with the UM, but not everybody fits into that demographic necessarily. And I'm just there's students like me who have the privilege and benefits of being able to fall back on families who are well enough off so that it can help me out. And then there are students who don't have that privilege. And a lot of the time, those students are LGBT students who have been estranged from their family. I know several cases of personal friends who they had to choose between continuing to go through this university or coming out to their parents, or they had to choose between continuing to go through this university or transitioning or things like that. So that's a really pressing issue. And I think that when we talk about tuition increase, I think it's just very clear to me that the university is not acknowledging these types of students or even really thinking about them very much. And what I see my tuition dollars going towards are things that are sort of directly antithetical to every aspect of my life. For instance, that $26 million endowment in the last year that went directly to funding oil companies or alt-right movements. And I was just like, so as a gay person, how do I feel about the university giving endowments in this regards? Like, not very great. And then also I know personally as somebody who's organized with LGBT organizations that a lot of our funding has been slashed in the last year or so. And it's just really interesting because I'm like, well, I'm an out-of-state student too, so I'm paying so much in tuition. Where is all of this going, especially towards a semester in which we won't have access to a bunch of the benefits that we usually would during a normal semester here at the University of Michigan. Anyway, I just wanted to introduce myself briefly, vent some of my frustrations, and then also say that I am 100% a proponent of the Phones app idea. I think that I understand that there are concerns, but I think that right now it might be the best option. I also think that it's really good to do it at a set time rather than throughout the week, because I think that the frequency, like a giant influx of calls in a short period of time, can say a lot more than just like, I know that we're thinking long term, but I know personally that like it's a lot more annoying to have a bunch of calls all at once at a certain time of the day than just have a couple sporadic calls throughout the week, because you can forget about those. You can ignore those pretty easily. It's hard to ignore just like a mass mobilization. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
No, thank you for sharing all of that, and thank you for introducing yourself. It's nice to meet you. Renee, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, I kind of want to echo both the last two, Alex and Izzy, in just that I think personally, like, I don't really know, well, I guess not really echoing, but I feel like we need to, instead of just expressing our outrage, because I think they know that we're outraged, I think we need action steps, and we need to tell them what we want to see. Because I kind of disagree just in that they are not advocating for students. I think they could definitely advocate for us better, but I think that they think that they're advocating for us. So when Zach was on the call with the two Regents, they explained that their reasoning for the tuition increase was actually to reduce costs for low-income students. Of course, they ignored a ton of other students while doing that and didn't advocate for all low-income students, but I think that they thought that that was the best solution. So I think what we need to do is propose other solutions to the tuition increase. So where do we want that funding that would come from the tuition to come from? Just because I was talking to someone else the other day and they asked what we were fighting for, and I really, like, I couldn't tell them. Like, we're outraged, but like, what do we want to do with that outrage is what I think we need to talk about. And I do support the idea of a phones app in that we need to show them that if they're going to make our lives harder, we're going to make their lives harder. But I think that in doing that, we also need to tell them, like, hey, this is what we actually want to see, because I think that they want to help, they just don't necessarily know how. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that's a really important piece of all of this, and I do think we will get to that after we kind of talk about the COVID tuition update. I know it's on the agenda to talk about what our goals are, so we can actually have something to say when people ask us, what are we fighting for? And I think I think that will be addressed, hopefully, by the end of the night. Luke, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I would like to say that it's confusing, especially with the COVID-19 tuition plan, because every time I know that I get financial aid, so when I look in the financial aid, I see the COVID-19 plan. And also, it's strange how like it'd be cool if U of M took care of like that. There's a lot of these professors with health concerns, and to me, it's sad how you have all these international students that might not even come back to campus because of the thing that the NPR posted 2 days ago.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So Spiros, did you have anything you wanted to say real quick?
Yeah, real quick. Thanks, Alex and Easy. I just want to say that we're not all of us are CSG people. There's like people from other organizations. We, you know, I am very thankful that you guys joined the call and, you raise your voice. Please keep doing that. Tell your friends, spread the word. We do want like different voices. We do want like different organizations. We want everyone, all students to come together on this great cause. And on what Easy was asking and what Annie was saying, yes, the biggest point of the meeting today is to figure out what our goals are and what we're trying to do as a group. We do have an idea. We do have like a couple of routes that we want to take, but today's meeting is to solidify all these options. So yeah, thank you very much for joining.
If anybody has anything more to say about the phones app, now would be the time, because I think we're going to go into voting on the idea pretty soon. So I see Zach and Renee, your hands are up. Are you going to talk about the phones app?
No, I just wanted to give the overview of the phone calls, but we can do that after the vote. That's fine. We can do it after.
Before we vote, does anyone have any last kind of like vote for this, don't vote for this, just burning desire to say something?
I do want to say one last thing, which is I really agree with what Alex said about adding certain things to the script. I think that was a very good point. A lot of other people voiced some really good ideas. Annie and I and Trent and a few other people, Josh as well, had spent a lot of time working on this this project and the script and everything. So once again, like this can be changed going forward. You guys bring some great ideas to the table. So if it does pass, if this is what we want to do, then just know that we'll be working like as a team.
Yeah, I want to echo that. We're not trying to gatekeep anything here. If we vote to pass this, nothing is final. It's still a work in progress. We have until next Tuesday. Josh, do you want to go ahead and say something?
Yeah, I just want to add that, I mean, this is like one element of what we're planning, but like, for example, in the future, Sam, if you have ideas for other campaigns you think would be effective, like please reach out, join the group me we have, and help us come up with ideas for the future.
Sam, I know a lot of people just kind of said stuff in favor. Do you want to say anything, or are we good?
I mean, I'll just stick by to there are a couple of things I think that can have a measurable effect on students, which we need the goodwill of the Regents to do it, and it's totally up to them. And I don't know if doing something just to annoy them, it could potentially be alienating. I actually agree with Renee. I do think the Regents think they're doing what is in the best interest of students. I don't think the Regents are out to get us. I think they want to hear students, and I would be hesitant that this might alienate them. Yeah.
Okay, Renee, your hand was up. Go ahead.
Wait a second, I forgot what I was saying.
No, you're so good. Talking on Zooms is always uncomfortable because you're always the only person talking.
Yeah. Never mind, actually. It was
okay. If you think of it. So is everyone okay with us just doing a Zoom poll?
Wait, I remembered actually.
Go ahead.
About what Sam said about needing the goodwill of the regents, I think that that's important to consider, and that's what a couple of other people have voiced in the tuition group chat. Just because we are going to be asking for things in the future, like one thing that I'm especially passionate about is getting an ex officio member on the board before we get the constitutional amendment. And I don't think they're going to be very willing to help. I mean, it's kind of their job to help. Well, is it their job? This question, but I don't know. I think that we have to be careful in how we agitate them because we are going to be asking for things from them. So while we are calling them and trying to annoy them, I think we need to be gracious when we do share our share the script.
Yeah.
So.
I hope that no one sees this as overstepping, but I'm going to go ahead and also just share my perspective real quick, just because I was working on this. So as I think a lot of you know, I, and then also Sammy and Mary, who aren't here tonight, both wrote petitions to the Board of Regents. At this point in time, they have almost 7,000 signatures, which is a lot of students and probably a lot of parents as well. And the Regents didn't listen to that. And so I think a lot of people see the phone zap kind of as coming out of nowhere, but I do think it's an escalating step, especially because at the time, when the Regents called the meeting and didn't have public comment, my petition at least had 3,000 signatures. So there was already kind of a not listening aspect. And a lot of people have framed kind of the phone zap as to be annoying. The way I see it is a way to be heard. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I hope no one takes this as like a final word because it's not. We're about to.
Well, you're on with Matthew.
Hi, MJ. I didn't hear what you said. Sorry. But if you want to say anything, go ahead. Okay.
No worries. Hopefully it's what you needed. It was weird getting used to the software, but hopefully it's what you want.
I don't. She's not.
Okay.
Just mute, yeah.
So is everyone okay with a Zoom vote? Sorry. Okay, so let's see if I can get this right. And please put in the chat if this isn't right, because then we'll switch to a different format. Okay. And this is anonymous.
Is there a way to add like an abstain option?
So
Asking
right
for
now
a friend.
11 out of 16 people have voted.
Just don't vote.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So I think right now we're at 3 people not voting. So I also don't think, so at this point, I think this overwhelmingly passes. We have 11 votes in favor and 3 votes opposed. So we will move forward with this, and we will publicize in both the large group meet and the tuition kind of small committee group meet a time to maybe talk about this and an opportunity for anyone who wants to be heard on how to hold this moving forward, whether that means modifying the script or modifying the process. We'll make sure that everyone is able to voice their opinions. So yay, we have an action to do. Yay.
And we successfully voted on something.
Yes, great. Great precedent.
Honestly,
Okay, so
the people that voted no, please, please, please work with the people that voted yes, and they are gonna do the action in order to like have an input on how you guys would like to see this action happening, in order, you know, to accommodate your opinions too, in terms of like not annoying the Regents, etc., etc.
yeah, we do not want our actions to get in the way of anyone else's actions. Trenton, do you want to go ahead and say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, just going off of having a vote, like, we have very open discussions. I'm going to post the when to meet for our next meeting. I want to schedule something before, hopefully next Tuesday, when we have our actual phone zap. maybe to discuss a little bit more. I'm also interested in doing like a student hotline to like answer student questions and like get student like input. So I'm also going to be bringing that forward on the next meeting. If anyone wants to talk, bring their own ideas, anything, we're all excited to hear people's ideas and things like that. So yeah, just I'll also post the when to meet for in the general like group chat like after this meeting, so that everyone can see it.
Perfect.
That's it.
Okay, so let's move on in our agenda. So now we're kind of in the proposal section. And so this actually happens to also be me. So this is just the general general proposal I have for the structure of this coalition, which
Wait, before we do this, could we please do the call overview, just because I feel like there's information in that that's probably important for like other elements of our planning.
yeah, I wasn't really sure what you meant by that, to be honest.
Just like Zach did talk to like 2 of the regions for like an hour.
Over that. So sorry. Zach, go ahead and talk about your call with both Regent Acker and Regent Bernstein. So sorry I skipped over that.
No, it's all good. Yeah, so I reached out just like as an individual. I left a message on the voicemails. I called the numbers that were on the U of M website for the Regents for both Mark Bernstein and Jordan Acker. I didn't actually expect to get a response, but I did. And so we had pretty long conversations about the tuition increases. I have linked the notes that I made during the calls. I just sent it in the chat as well. So we talked about quite a bit. And I think Renee mentioned this, I believe it was you, who said that they think that they're doing what's best for all students, or for some students, I guess. And that seemed pretty clear to me, because they were talking about using this tuition increase to increase financial aid for the lower income students and also prevent letting staff go, which is obviously something that's good. However, they didn't really talk so much about the Flint campus or the Dearborn, the issues that international students and out-of-state students have. International students currently have to pay a $500 international student fee, which isn't very fair. And also asking students to pay more for the university health service during a pandemic doesn't seem like a good idea. Now, the one thing that angered me a lot about the original meeting that they held was the fact that they didn't follow the Open Meetings Act, which states that any public body must allow for public comment during a formal meeting. And a formal meeting is defined as usually, I think, like a meeting where they take a vote. And obviously this is a very important vote. So it was a formal meeting, and yet they didn't allow for public comment. When I talked to Mark Bernstein, what he said, and he's a lawyer, what he said was the Board of Regents is a self-governing body and therefore doesn't have to follow the Open Meetings Act. And he pointed to a legal case called, let me find it.
It's the Free Press versus the Board of Regents of the University of Michigan.
Exactly, thank you, Annie. Which took place in 2016, which apparently makes exemptions for the Board of Regents in particular. Now, I personally believe that the Board of Regents should, even if they don't legally have to, they should allow public comment at every formal meeting. And that can be written into the bylaws. There's no issue there. So that's one thing that I really want to have stressed during the phone zap is this is not okay. You are supposed to be, you answer to the people. You were voted in, and we are the main shareholder, the stakeholders in this university as students. They also talked about, I mentioned the possibility of having an ex officio member on the board. I mentioned that to Jordan Acker, and I also mentioned it to Mark Bernstein, hoping that they would be excited about that. Yes, Sam Bernstein is on TV. The Bernstein advantage. I think the Bernstein advantage in politics is having a ton of money and running with the Democratic Party. That's the Bernstein advantage. So anyway, I mentioned having an ex officio member. They both said that it would be unconstitutional because it's mentioned in the 1963 Michigan Constitution that the Board of Regents for several public universities shall consist of 8 members, 1 president, and they describe how they're voted in. And they said that any change to the bylaws, trying to add a new member in, having like a 9th member or a 10th member, would be unconstitutional. And there hasn't been an amendment to the Michigan Constitution since 1963, I believe, when the Constitution was put in place. However, it is possible to achieve through a ballot initiative or through a constitutional convention, some other ways as well. You should look it up. It didn't seem super encouraging, unfortunately, having that like as a short-term goal. Maybe in like within the next 2 years, getting a ballot initiative and actually doing that, adding in several new seats maybe for employees and for students, that was a possibility. And they didn't seem like they were that against it, but it seemed like they were saying the main issue with that is it's unconstitutional and therefore they can't do it. Does anybody have any questions about this? There was a lot that was discussed. You guys can just pop in or ask any questions.
I just have a general statement, having really been involved with local politics here in Ann Arbor for the last 5 years. What voted politicians say and what they vote on are often very different things. So that's just something to think about and be aware of. But thanks for having the meeting.
Yeah, and I think that one issue that I really want to focus on with the Phones app is transparency, because they've promised, they're saying that students whose families have an income of $120,000 and below will not see an increase in tuition, which means the tuition will increase, but so will financial aid to the extent that, that they'll keep up with each other, so they won't be paying more. However, that's just kind of a statement. There's nothing that's binding there, and they might not actually follow that, which is concerning to me. So transparency, knowing exactly where the money, and it doesn't apply to Dearborn students, thank you. That's very true. Dearborn, I don't think out of state or international, which is unfortunate.
Also Flint, who had a 3.4 increase rather than a 1.9. So Zach, does that kind of conclude your recap of your calls with the Regents?
Last thing, Mark Bernstein seemed pretty open to working with us in going forward. Jordan Acker was tentatively also that way. Mark Bernstein says he would be willing to meet with a group of us in the fall, in person actually, but socially distanced. And he also gave us his cell phone number to call him directly.
Which we will not be using in the Phones app.
No.
Before anyone gets angry about that, I promise.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. So moving forward, we kind of have this idea of like what the structure of our coalition should be like. And so this is my proposal, and I think this will eventually lead to David's point. The way I see our coalition is that we are a group of groups. So the way I see it is, I know we have a lot of students here who are more interested in having a student on the Board of Regents, and then we have a lot of students here who are more interested in directly combating the tuition increase. And honestly, it's not going to matter if we have a student on the Board of Regents if the students who are affected by the tuition increase aren't going to be here by the time we have a student on the Board of Regents. And then it's also, oh, sorry, when you guys message me, I look at it. And then it's also not going to matter if we have the Regents decrease tuition if we still don't have a say in anything else moving forward by not having student representation on the Board of Regents. So everything we're doing is super interconnected. And I don't think any of us disagree with that. I think we all just disagree with how we should operate as a coalition. And so my proposal, which I think David is going to go into, because I think we might have kind of a similar idea, is that our coalition should be a group of committees. And the purpose of the coalition is not to be a leadership kind of role. It's to be a body where we can all stay updated on what each committee is doing, so we can all support each other moving forward, because we all realize how interconnected our goals are. And so with that being said, I think now's a good time to have a conversation about what the official goals of this coalition are. So if you have an idea of what you think a goal of this coalition should be, go ahead and raise your hand. Sam, your hand is raised. I don't know if that's old or new, but you can go ahead and start.
It's old, but I can just talk about this. I just want to quickly respond to what Zach said. It would not require a constitutional amendment to add a non-voting regent. It would require a constitutional amendment to add a voting regent. Any legislative body can confer parliamentary rights to individuals without overstepping their like outlined vote totals and majorities. The Board of Regents actually does this now with a couple of the vice presidents have parliamentary rights. So that's just really quick. And then just pulling into what Anne's question was, I think there's a committee that should be working on meeting with the Board of Regents and getting 5 of them to agree to voting to have a non-voting regent on the board who has parliamentary rights, and we could find a way to appoint them either through CSG or whatever.
Thanks. And just real quick, because I think Zach was going to respond. I don't think he ever contested whether or not it was constitutional. I think he was just echoing that the Regents said it was unconstitutional, just to put that out there. But Sam, thank you for that alternate perspective. That really helps. Spiros, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so you know, when I started, I guess, this initiative, what I had in mind was, as an end goal, you know, as the utmost goal, is to get a student member having voting rights on the Board of Regents. Why? Because it's been you know, it has occurred, you know, during the past years, and it seems that I mean, it is common knowledge that the university will give as many rights to the students to have their voice heard as to like make them stop. In fact, you know, Amanda, who's the CSG president, if she asks for it, she does have a say on like the Board of Regents now and then. The same happens with public comments. You know, they allow like 3 minutes of public comments for, you know, every person that asks for it. I tend to believe that this is not enough. You know, we are not going to get what we want if we do not get voting power on the Board of Regents. I am fine with like all the actions that people want to advocate for, and the tuition increase action in the phones up. I was in support of it, but I'd like everything or everyone better to have on the back of his mind the end goal, which end goal is what is gonna stay. You know, we might, I don't know how possible it is, but you know, we might as well decrease the tuition or like you know, make them like take back what they voted or whatever, which I honestly I feel very unlikely, but hey, it might happen. But this is not something that students down the road are gonna benefit a lot from. You know, maybe like in a couple of years they are gonna vote to increase 5% the tuition or whatever percent the tuition. What is gonna stay and what is gonna be memorable and what is gonna be left for students, you know, to come in Michigan is if they actually have voting power on the Board of Regents. If you know, if the Board of Regents actually have students conversing with them in every single meeting without being able to disregard their opinion. So I'm all for all the committees and all the actions if we have on the back of our mind what is our end goal that is going to benefit all students for, you know, the rest of the history of the university.
Thanks. Okay, so moving forward, just based on the order that you all raised your hands, we have Josh, David, Renee, Trenton. So Josh, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. So I fully agree that we should be fighting to get student representation on the Board of Regents through, I mean, whatever gives us really the most say there. If if that's an ex officio member, then that'd be great. But I think that we really have to consider that that's just one position, and there's a lot of other complicated things at play that will, first of all, have to take place at the same time, but also will definitely come before that. I think our goals should be more building overall student representation, with one of the primary goals being getting a student on the Board of Regents. But for example, like the budget that they voted in favor of, it's the budget presented by the president's office. The administration has no like representative body. It's a bunch of people who are appointed and hired. And I think just pretending that's not like a very important seat of power at the university and not pushing to try to get any say there, I think really misses a lot of points. I also think that the work we're doing right now is really important, both for like our current material conditions, but also for actually developing student unity. Like these are some of the biggest issues we're facing as students in like the history of the university. So clearly we can't just be thinking about what it's going to look like in 5 years. Like if people 5 years ago had been thinking about now, it would have been very nice, but we're here now. I also think that like showing that students can at least develop some level of power and take on a group like the Regents will actually energize people to care about representation. Like people seem to kind of care about representation now, but clearly we're the only ones here discussing it, despite the meeting being posted everywhere. So I think we like getting results will be useful in ultimately accomplishing these goals. And I don't know, I just think there has to be more to it than just the Board of Regents. And obviously we can discuss that, but I think that should be one of the big goals still.
Thanks, Josh. So next we have David, and I just want to remind everyone the conversation right now is what are the goals for the coalition? David, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try to make this brief. I didn't introduce myself before, but hi everyone, I'm David. I'm a grad student at the School of Information. I'm a CSG rep. Most people here are not on CSG, which, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but I guess I want to thank you all for being here. I think this is something that a lot of people care about, and there's really, because this is going to be something across multiple campuses, there's really, like, being on CSG is representative of something, but it's not certainly like what you need to make action on this. Like, it's not like every student is empowered to take action on their own. And I would say that's true of, you know, democracy as a whole. Anyways, but I digress. What I wanted to say about like the goals of this group are, I think Spiros has written out some really good, I guess, big picture vision for the group. And I think what would be the most constructive would be, or whatever our next meeting is, to potentially propose and vote on like a mission statement. I know, like I said, Spiros has already written a bunch of stuff, so he can probably help author that or craft it. But if anyone else wants to work with him on that, I think that would be something that would be valuable, to have like a really clear mission statement of like, here's what we're working on. And then we're not having to have this conversation like every single time that we meet.
Thanks, David. Renee, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, kind of echoing that in like kind of that we posted this everywhere, but we only have 17 people here. I personally reached out to like what ended up being 50 plus organizations, from half of those from Dearborn and Flint, and only got responses from like 10. So I think that results are really important to get people excited about this, because I think that a lot of people think that it's something that can't be done, and they're disinterested or something like that. But I do also, on that note, want to acknowledge that when we're talking about goals, I think it's really important to have representation from Dearborn and Flint campuses here, and we only have 2 or 3 of those students here. So I think we need to also talk about how we can reach out to them differently. That's not reaching out to specific orgs, because I've tried that. And I don't really have any other ideas for what to do. So if y'all have any ideas or any connections to Flint or Dearborn orgs or students who might be interested, and you could either reach out or say it now, that would be amazing, because I am struggling. So yeah.
If anyone just wants to talk on that real quick before we get to Trenton, Joshua, go ahead. Or
Actually,
You can go ahead.
Trent can discuss the issue with working with orgs pretty well, so I'll just let him talk.
Okay, before we get to you, Trenton, Luke, did you want to say something?
Yeah, my name is Luke and I'm an undergrad. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people at U of M that are interested in this because we all the leaders and the best. And I'm sure some of them would all like be willing to like join in too.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trent, do you want to go ahead now?
Yeah, I could talk a little bit, just going off of the whole reaching out to student orgs. I think Josh and I tried that in April and May, thereabouts. We reached out to quite a few orgs and they did not respond. And the few that did were worried that they would upset the university, that they would be somehow getting their funding restricted, that they would somehow be targeted by the university, which, I mean, doesn't have a lot of backing, but I mean, at the moment, the university has used a lot of their institutional authority at the moment, and they've kind of been tightening their grip. So I have to imagine that a lot of orgs are kind of afraid, like, can we as an organization who has no explicit political purpose actually make some sort of statement to the university? And so that's why I have at least seen some orgs been afraid to speak up in the past. And I think that's a challenge of what we're doing. But I kind of raised my hand to the one point about the goal of earning representation. I do think that is a really good final goal of this. And I guess my kind of concern, or what I would maybe disagree with, I don't even know if it's necessarily disagreeing with, is the order of earning representation. I think that the way we do it is by first doing actions, by actually earning our representation through protests, through statements, through talking with the university, through representing ourselves and the force that we present. And then through that, we can actually just use our bargaining and negotiating power to gain a seat at the board, where we already have the kind of infrastructure and organization already present to represent ourselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense.
Okay.
So Alex, do you want to go ahead? Sorry, I just saw your hand.
Yeah, I would like, first, to more of what Renee was saying, anyone who's willing and able, I would encourage you right now, Google University of Michigan richest school. If you want, you don't have to. But basically what you'll see is University of Michigan has, I'll read it word for word, #1 wealthiest student body in public universities, a study published by the New York Times, blah, 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 blah. Highest percentages of wealthy students, with 66 of those enrolled in the top 20% income bracket. And I think that's why, Renee, even from the Ann Arbor campus, Dearborn, Flint, that's why, we have such a small representation, because the majority don't really care about these actionable steps that we want to take, such as the tuition increase, because a lot of them don't have to think about that. So I think that we can't get discouraged about outreach, but we should definitely find more like-minded people, even if they don't directly benefit from the tuition increase or whatever else.
Awesome. Izzy, go ahead.
Hi, I was just wondering, have any of you reached out to coalitions who have been doing work with the university? You might have already said this already, but has any of you reached out to coalitions who have already been doing work to try to change university policies in the past, especially with the pandemic?
So I can answer that quickly. I don't know if I've talked to you specifically, but I've talked a lot with Amanda and Labiba, who are both from Dearborn's campus, about 1U and how our plans kind of align. But I don't think I haven't gotten far enough to kind of combine our interests. I think, Renee, this is a good question for you as well.
Yes, I have. We do have students on our contact list from like the climate action movement who are trying to divest fossil fuels, and Roe v. Rape, and GEO as well. But they're not present at the meeting. That's what also concerns me is we have 60 people on our contact list. And I'm not like, I don't think that it's just that 40 couldn't come. I just wonder why we're losing interest and what we could do to maintain and gain interest. So we have reached out to them, but I don't like, and we have a lot of students on board who might be able to help, but I don't know what's keeping them from participating.
Great. Yeah, I think a long-term plan of ours is to work more with other movements as well. I just think we have to kind of figure out what we are first, which we're, I hope, doing in this meeting. Sam, you have your hand up?
I just want to say that I don't think anyone should be discouraged by the turnout. I just remind everyone that it's late on a summer night during a pandemic. I completely forgot about the meeting. Everyone's very busy. I think that if we continue this into the fall semester, we see a much larger turnout.
Thanks for that, Sam. Okay. So I'm actually going to propose that we kind of, I guess I should say this just in response to everything that's going on in the chats. So I'm a member of CSG. I probably should have said that when I joined the meeting, to those of you who haven't met me yet. So I'm actually the Student of Michigan legislative delegate for CSG. So that means that I'm part of a group, Students of Michigan, that has delegates from each campus's student government, and we all meet. We've had 2 meetings already this summer. So I meet with, so far it's been Labiba and who is on our contact list, and then also another student who I don't think has been as active and on our contact list. But so that is an existing structure that takes place, and that is a connection that we have with other student governments. So yes, each Dearborn and Flint, they do each have a student government, they do each have a president, and they do also have a connection with Ann Arbor's campus through CSG. I believe that Dearborn I think is a Senate kind of format. I'm not sure what Flint is, but yes, they do have their own student governments. Luke, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say we could probably post on Discord, because I don't think anyone knows this, but when I'm looking on University of Michigan, just people over there, and there's a lot of them that talk about U of M, share some of them would be willing to join us in the future.
Oh, that's awesome. That would definitely be a great outreach.
Does anyone have Discord here other than me? Then if you guys want, I could put the U of M Discord link in the chat. This way you guys will be able to find it if that works.
Perfect. That'd be awesome. Thanks, Luke.
Welcome.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and propose that we kind of abandon my part of the agenda, just because I think that it's more important that we get to David's part. Does anyone have any opposition to that? Okay, cool. So David, do you want to go ahead and take over then?
Yeah, hi everyone. I was just setting a timer here. So hold on, I lost the window where I can see you all. There you are. Hi everyone. So I between our last meeting and this one, I met with a number of different people. I apologize if I didn't meet with you personally. It's just a lot. I'm working full time. It's hard to chase everyone down. But everyone I talked to pretty much had like a similar sentiment of like, we should separate these out into separate committees with like these very specific kind of goals and action items within those committees. So that's kind of what this proposal is based around. I don't really want to read through it. If anyone wants me to read through it, I certainly can, but I tried to keep it relatively short. The way I worded it was I tried to intentionally focus on the goals, like overarching goals of the group, and not necessarily the methods to get to the goals. So I do like product design at work, and this is kind of what I do for work, is like we set goals of like, here's what we want this thing to look like, but how we actually do it could look like a number of different things. And that was kind of an intentional, like not including a lot of the details or things we've talked about. I know within every single one of these committees, there's going to be tons of different conversations around the steps that would be required to actually make that happen. And there's going to be lots of different ways to skin a cat, for lack of a better phrase. I'm just full of bad jokes today. Anyways, so let me pull this up. So that is kind of the overarching view of the committee. So there's 4. They're not really ordered in any particular order. We could reorder them to be like timeline if we wanted to. So like tuition would be first. Like we could order them by time, but they're not. My timer's going off for myself. They're not ordered in any particular order, so don't think that just because 1 is number 1 that it's higher priority than number 3 or 4 or whatever. If anyone at this time, that's just kind of a brief overview. I think my thought is the best action steps coming out from these committees would be create a new group meet for the committees if they don't already exist, and then try to set up a time, I'd say in the next week, where those committees can meet. Because I know there's a lot of different people, and some people are going to want to be really involved with certain topics, and other people want to be involved with other topics. So at this point, that's kind of like my brief introduction. I'd like to set aside like 8 to 10 minutes to discuss, like if anyone has any opposition to this or suggestions for amendments or maybe additional committees that they'd like to add. I tried to add these, I don't know when I added these earlier today, but to allow some time for people to look at them and make any suggestions. So I guess at this point, Annie, do you want me to moderate this part still?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and move to the co-host so you can see when people raise their hands.
Okay, cool.
There you go.
All right. I don't know who was in what order, so I will go to
Josh Renee.
Josh Renee. Okay, great. Joshua.
Hello. Yeah, so I basically agree with this whole thing. I guess I'm most involved with what is listed here as the tuition committee, and the one criticism of the way it's phrased here that I have is, I mean, definitely in the short term and probably for the next few months, that's what we're going to be focused on. But if this is like supposed to be like a permanent committee that's like part of this group, I think it would make more sense to just list it as like an action committee that's supposed to like try to involve like a wider group of students in fighting for, I guess, like important issues, whenever we're working on it. So like it definitely is tuition now, and I agree with the goals that are in it, but I don't know if they're like the long-term goals that you would want. And I don't really know if there's like an end goal. My vision of it. This is obviously something we should probably discuss as like an individual committee, but like it's more a question of if this has like a definite like end, or if it's more about continuing to try to get students to rally behind specific causes that could ultimately help also specifically support all of these student representation proposals.
Cool. I'll try to wait till everyone's talked to respond. So I'll just move on to Renee's next, and then Zach.
I was talking to a student before this meeting who couldn't be at this call today. Her name is Josie. And we were talking about how these committees might be a little bit broad, because when you look at a committee like the Constitutional Amendment Committee, there is so much to do to even get voters to vote on the petition, to get it on the ballot, and to kind of facilitate all of that. So it might be extremely overwhelming to just have one committee that broad. So we were talking about maybe either splitting broad committees into subcommittees, or having a bunch of more specific committees. Like, for example, one we didn't see here was an outreach committee, one that would kind of streamline our social media efforts and also reach out to the Dearborn and Flint campuses, and then also reach out to Michigan State and Wayne State, who are also affected by the Constitution. So those are just kind of our thoughts, and maybe making these committees a bit more specific so they're less overwhelming.
Cool. Zach, and then Trenton. I'm taking notes at the bottom of the document, by the way, if anyone wants to add details there.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I am not positive I agree with what you said, Renee, also with what you said, Josh. I'm not positive the GroupMe will be the best way to organize our committees going forward, especially if there's going to be quite a few of them. Discord might be better, I'm not sure, or Slack, for that matter. Another thing is, if we do end up with GroupMe just for the time being, we might just temporarily do that. I want to suggest that we have those links, like the join group links, very accessible, maybe in the description of the main group chat. so that we can all know where that is. Yeah, and I agree with Renee's point that the Constitutional Amendment Committee would eventually have tons of work to do. So I think we would have to have like the entire team working on that once the details are worked out of what needs to be done in order to get a constitutional amendment through.
Cool. This is a lot. I'm like taking notes here and then taking my own notes and then trying to see who's next. So Trenton and then Alex.
And I'll go fast. I just kind of want to voice a little bit of assent for what Zach said about maybe moving platforms from GroupMe. I thought maybe Discord or Slack have a more streamlined process. Discord, even because you can just arrange meetings pretty quickly and it works. I guess I don't really know how large meetings work on Discord. That's for other people who probably know a little bit more. But I'll actually voice a little bit of dissent for what Josh said about the current tuition committee. This is a rare moment where I'll disagree. I don't know if we should just be an action committee. I think that kind of broadens our, it's a little too broad for one committee to handle. I think maybe we can just represent student financial interests, student financial representation on the Board of Regents, basically just negotiating tuition and like other costs for the behalf of students across campuses. Just, if that works, I don't know. That was what I was thinking it would be. That's it.
Cool. Alex and then Annie.
Yeah, so kind of echoing off both Josh and Trent. Well, I have two thoughts actually, and I'll say the first one first because I think that makes the most sense. I think it's good to keep in mind that a lot of this will be changed over time, so we can create 4 or 5 committees. Some of them might be broad, but as we develop interest in growth, we can always change that. We can always split into multiple committees or create new ones as we see the need. So I just wanted to say that, but in addition to that, I think we should, in addition to the tuition committee, have some idea like a student finance committee, and it would encompass tuition but also directly combat unfair, unequitable, and immoral behavior from the university as it pertains to increased expenses. I'm sorry, I'm slipping on your name, but you talked about the LGBTQ community and how they're disproportionately affected by the increase in expenses from the university. And I think a committee that's thinking both about the finances and the equity side would be a great mesh. And I don't know what that looks like, but that's my idea.
Annie and then Spiros.
Awesome. So I just want to reiterate kind of what Renee put in the chat and Alex just said. I do think it is important to stress that like any committees we make, if we're making them now, we can make them tomorrow. If we make them now, we can get rid of them tomorrow. I do think one of the purposes of the committees is just to streamline decision-making a bit more, so that you have all passionate individuals about a certain topic with the ability to actually do things without having to have a weekly meeting with all of us here. I think that's like the coalition style that we're all looking for. So Renee, I do really like your idea of like with the Constitution whole committee eventually having maybe some subcommittees, but then having them answerable to the Constitution committee, which is then part of the coalition. I just feel like that's a good organizational structure to have. And then moving forward, David brought up a long time ago about how we will eventually hopefully have like a statement of our coalition. And I feel like in our statement, for anyone who's interested, that would also maybe be a good place to put like how committees will be established. What does it take to be a committee? What are the rules for how committees operate, like in regards to the goals of the coalition, so that we don't have committees kind of stepping on each other's toes, as was an issue tonight with the phones app that was brought up. And I also just want to say, I also don't really agree with Joshua's idea of having like an action committee. I think that it's important for each of our committees to be one of our goals and then to be subdivided in ways to achieve those goals. But I feel like it makes sense as a coalition to just have, like, if one of our goals is to have a student on the Board of Regents, that's a committee. And then from there, it gets subdivided. So that's all I wanted to say.
Spiros and then Sam Braden.
Hey, so I kind of want to reiterate what I said before. It is great that we have like people that are passionate about advocating, you know, all these different ideas, and kind of like answering to like Joshua's idea of like making this action committee that is going to be constantly advocating for like students' financial needs. That's a great cause, but we, I mean, I'm a member of the CSG. I'm very critical of the CSG, of the role of CSG on like doing that, but there is already organizations that actually do what you are trying to do too. When my vision about this coalition is, you know, not to solve every single problem, because if we're trying to solve every single problem that, you know, the university has with the students and vice versa, you know, we are essentially, you know, trying to make a huge organization that is not going to be targeting, is not going to specifically targeting like one goal, and it's going to take a long time to like, you know, do whatever we want to do. And again, there is like so many. CSG is one of the organizations that essentially advocates for like all these things, or at least it should be advocating for all these things. Again, I want to say what I said at the very beginning, and I'm going to keep saying, I see the goal, the long-term goal of all the committees to be getting voting representation on the Board of Regents. We, of course, you know, are parts of like different organizations, and we're members that are dedicated to like, you know, other causes too. But I do believe that we should not broaden up that much our horizons, because we are going to get lost. Again, we're not trying to substitute, you know, any you know, group that has been around for like years in the university or anything. We are trying to do something new, and we're trying to be effective in what we're doing. So I think, you know, establishing committees that are going to be long-term advocating for like whatever injustice happens in the university or without the university is kind of out of our scope, and we do not have the power to do that as of now. I mean, yeah, if we're trying to, you know, become the new CSG or the new, you know, Democratic Party, yeah, I guess, but I think we should concentrate more on like on our goals, on the goals that, you know, this coalition was founded on.
Cool. Sam Braden, then Josh, then I'm gonna try to close discussion, and I'll respond to a few things and maybe make a couple of changes, and then we can vote.
I just think there's no need for everything to be perfect now, that these are fine and things can be worked out later.
Sweet. Thanks, Sam. Josh.
Yeah, I was just kind of spitballing, but basically kind of what I was saying is I think it's important to have like a part of the group that is at least like connected to the student body, because it feels like I think we can agree that like having more student representation is important, but like what we were saying earlier, like having results can be part of that. But yeah, no, I realize that what I said was definitely a little too broad to be actionable. And I think more what I suggest is, while you're trying to fight for real representation, you try to get students involved in ways that like meet them where they are. Like students right now like care about tuition, so getting them interested in representation as a result of the tuition thing, like right now, is sort of like that. But yeah, no, I kind of agree with everyone now. You made good points.
Cool. Thanks, Josh. Just to reflect on Josh, I agree. I think anything we can do to get more student voices in front of, and oh, Annie, did I never call on? Oh my God, sorry. Did I call on you? I can't remember.
Oh, I was
Annie?
just waving bye to Izzy, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was like, okay, anyways, anything we can do to get more voices in front of the Regents, I think is gonna be a beneficial thing in general, just in theory. So just to respond to a few things, I think my understanding with this is like, I think we would let committees kind of maybe not necessarily set their own goals, but like refine their goals as they see fit. I think within like at least a vague direction. I think that's valuable. I totally agree with Renee in that I definitely anticipate there being like subcommittees, especially within the constitutional amendment, depending on how that process goes, and if there need to be other subcommittees as well. I think that's fine. I'm just going through my notes here. I don't know if we should just rename the tuition committee to like student finance and tuition committee or something like that, if that would be something that's better. I feel like tuition committee is like a little bit vague, so I'm fine with renaming it, which might help with like the more longevity if it needs to stick around. And then, yeah, just to kind of echo, I think what Annie and Sam and a few other people said is that like, I think these committees should be able to we should revisit these and feel free to edit them, I guess, at any point. So I guess as far as like amendments to this before we vote on it, I'm going to add that at least in at the end to say, we as a group, I'm typing it in right now, we as a group will regularly revisit committee structure and reformat as needed. I think that's important to include so that we don't get stuck. I'm supposed to say the timeline every month. I don't know, because I don't know how often we're going to be meeting as a full group.
I think it should just be able to be brought up whenever.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like a month too, but I don't know. Hard to say. Okay, cool. So
I have a question.
Yes.
We have the ex officio committee and then the constitutional amendment committee. Is the ex officio committee specifically trying to advocate or trying to achieve a non-voting ex officio member on the committee only, or possibly a voting member?
Just non-voting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think like the ex officio member should be something that we see progress on, like while we wait for the progress on the constitutional amendment, because I think we established we don't need to amend the Constitution to get an ex officio member. So if we do amend the Constitution, it should be, I know someone was talking about this in the group chat, it would be to get a voting member, not just an ex officio member. So it's kind of like a stepping stone.
And just
Sam, go ahead, Zach.
I'm sorry, I just want to say one last thing. I think sometimes ex officio members do have voting rights. I think all the term ex officio actually means is you are on a certain board by holding another office. So like by being elected by the student body to hold like the student's representative office or whatever, then you automatically have a position on the board. So just so everybody's clear with the terminology.
Sam, Braden, did you have your hands raised? Or was that on accident? Okay. I have like a notification pop up, so I'm like, I don't know. Okay, cool. Annie, can you put together a vote again?
Yeah, so do we just want to vote on every single committee or just vote to have all four of them at once? Is there any opposition to just voting for all four right now at once? Okay, we will just do that then. Beep, beep,
Sweet, thank you everyone.
Oh God. Oh, well, here are the results from the first one. Yay. Okay.
Might be worth at our next meeting to talk about how we vote on things too. Like,
yeah.
Like, is 51% yes or is 75% yes? Like that sort of thing. But I'm dying to know what Hayden's thinking here. He's been quiet this whole time.
I'm listening.
Sorry to call you out.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. Sorry, my mom just came in. Yes. No.
Brendan, I don't know if you're serious or not.
Okay. I just put this out, but it didn't update. Oh, here we go. Okay, you should be able to vote now. Oh, sorry, I put no. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll because we have 11 votes and it's not gonna make a difference. This passed like overwhelmingly. There are the results. Yay. So great, we now have 4 committees. I think the talk of organization is important at this point. Do we want to keep doing with group me's or do we want to switch to Slack? I have experience with Slack. I could set that up if that's like something we want to do.
Slack is a pretty good platform.
Okay, I guess we can vote on that as well.
My preference is Discord, but it doesn't really matter.
Oh, I'll put that in there. Does anyone else have a preference? Okay, this is a pretty official poll.
Can we vote between Slack or Discord?
If it is close, we can go between Slack and Discord if that makes sense.
Alex, the difference between Slack and Discord is that Discord is really easy to switch channels, and Slack it's like a huge pain in the butt unless you have it installed on your computer.
Got it.
But other than that, they're pretty much the same.
Okay, considering that it's
I can't vote, but
oh, okay, that makes sense. Since your vote would probably not matter, here are the results. Discord wins. So I don't know anything about Discord, so someone who does, I will nominate you to figure this out for the rest of us.
Can I say my opinion on this? The vote was very close. I would rather have this postponed because it's not like a matter that, you know, really has to be, you know, voted on right now. And, you know, the vote was very split. There wasn't quite a big majority that voted on Discord. I would rather have this be an issue that we have to do later on because
We could do a group poll instead. That might be better.
I guess, yes, I guess there's going to be a lot more people that, you know, would like to, you know, join this. I don't know how, you know, yeah, I'd say we, you know, we vote on these like later on. For now,
I would also support like we can just continue with the group me, and then if individual committees want to decide their own like method of communication, they can do that.
Okay, let's go ahead and now that I know how to do this. Just because we did vote on it, ignore the last vote.
So I didn't even know you could vote in Zoom.
Yeah, I know, it's fun. Okay, we're ignoring the last vote. Yay. Okay, so we'll do that in group me later, I guess. And so this was just, I think, our last point of business since I kind of abandoned. So we have known leadership questions, decentralization of leadership, and coalition membership. Do we want to maybe save these for our next meeting now that we have committees? We can at least get some work done and then maybe don't have to meet for longer tonight. Okay. One thing that I think should be brought up later is just the question of what we want to name our coalition, because now that we're a committee, we have a lot of committees with different goals. Maybe having the committee called Elect Students isn't the best idea. So just keep that in mind. If you have like a fun name that you think would be fun, we can vote on that at our next meeting. So at this point, I'm just going to open this to anybody who wants to raise their hand and say anything before we leave.
When is our next meeting date?
That's a good question.
Because like what I was saying is we could all vote on it on the polls.
Mm-hmm.
Because then this way it's easier for us to like, because then this way you could do majority rules like you had then.
Yeah. Sorry, David, I didn't see that. Oh, perfect. I think
I
that's
just added it, so sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I also don't know if we should just vote within this meeting because there are maybe are more people who will come in the future.
When to meets are really good for this sort of thing.
Yeah, I'd say we keep going on, like, you know, what we were doing. I'll send out an email. I'll see how many people respond and, you know, at what time. Maybe next week, you know, in a week, or maybe not next week, but the week after, early, you know, Tuesday. It really depends on, you know, what's, and that really gives me on some other point that I wanted to, you know, talk about the next Board of Regents meeting. I'm going to be making a statement on behalf of our coalition. Of course, I'm going to send it to like the group meet chats for you guys to go over it and say, you know, whether you agree or disagree on that, or like if you want something to change or whatever. But I'd say the next meeting comes after we see what happens and how they respond to what I'm going to say on the Board of Regents meeting. If, you know, if everyone agrees with that.
Zach, you're really good at this. Do you want to add the link at the bottom to join the group me before we go to, just so people in here who aren't in the group me can join it?
Which group me? The elect
Large
students?
one, just because I think we'll be advertising the committee group me's in there until we vote on a different platform to use, if we use a different platform.
Cool. So we have 2 committee group chats currently. We have one for the tuition committee and then one for
Ex officio.
ex officio member. And then as they're created, please just put the links in the main group chat, and then we can add it to the description so that we all know where that is. But I'll put it in the agenda right now, right? Is that what you want to do in the agenda?
Yeah, in the agenda and in the chat, if you would. And then also, if you would like to get emails, add your name to that spreadsheet that I just put in the chat. Anybody else who wants to say anything, please raise your hand now or forever. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, so one last thing. I think the committees we've proposed are great, but like I said before, I think simply calling a committee a tuition committee, I see a problem with that, because the language of to get the Regents to retract tuition increase, lower tuition, and remove the COVID fee, we need to remember these are greedy individuals. So telling them to give us back money is not going to go over well. And I get we're trying to make a stand, but I think we just need to be very careful what the language we use in order to do that.
What would you propose instead?
Something, and I didn't think on it much, I'm just spitballing.
Oh, yeah,
Something along the lines of like the student financial committee, where yes, our main focus in the short term should be to get them to eliminate that fee, because it's bullshit. Like I said before, why are we paying more for education when the lights aren't even on? But I think, like I said, we need to be very careful about the approach. So maybe equitable student finance committee. I don't know. I really don't know. The name doesn't matter. I think it's the goal.
I think you can talk about that within the committee and pick up better verbiage. That's just stuff that I wrote off the top of my head today, and I didn't think too much about it. Just tried to keep it simple.
You're totally fine. I just wanted to raise a concern because this is the first meeting. So going forward, we're just going to dive in and want to work hard. So I wanted to say it before that happened.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's all.
Anybody else?
Can I make some closing remarks?
Yeah, go ahead.
Adjourn. First of all, thanks all for coming in today. There's a lot that is going on with what we're doing. People contact me all the time. I try to respond to everyone in, like, you know, a very, I guess, effective manner. I also had like people from conservative groups, you know, calling me and asking me about it. They're interested at least in like, you know, how we work and whether like all voices are being heard. I'm saying this because, you know, if anyone, you know, if you have any concerns about anything, feel free to, you know, shoot me a text, email, or even call me. I always answer. And also, if you know, if there is people, you know, that are wondering what we're doing, or you know, they need more information, or they want to get into the loop, and you guys, you know, don't want to spend time on like, you know, getting them into the loop and stuff. Feel free to just say, hey, just reach out to this guy. That's what Amanda did. That's what other people have done. And I'm more than happy to talk on behalf of, you know, this group.
Also, just because I know you're working a full-time job and I don't want to put too much of a burden on you, you can also reach out to me. I do nothing. So, or I do a lot, but it's all remote, so I can do it whenever I need to.
Yeah, you guys are, you know, I'm gonna be around, but you know, I might not be as active as you expect me to be, but you know, I'll do my best. You know, I just, you know, be out there.
Yeah, so you can always also reach out to me, because I have my phone on me all the time, it seems like. Hayden, you just put your video on. You want to say something?
No, not really. I just thought
Okay.
that I'd let
Nice to see you.
I guess
All right, guys.
I didn't, can I say something really quick? I didn't really say this before, but I'm excited that I think we've made some really good action steps here. Have some really good, clear stuff we can move forward with, which has been a little bit ambivalent for like the last week or two. So I'm excited to, I guess, move forward. So thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Barring anybody else who wants to say anything, I think this is a good place to end for the night. Okay. Have a great night, everyone. Bye.